How's everyone doing? Got a good crowd out here? Again, my name's Kyle Rojas, and I work for Edge and Node, which is the founding team behind the graph, and now just one of many core devs working on the protocol. And today I'm going to talk about Web3, right? Its evolution, how it came about, and why I think it's probably the most important work that I could be doing within the graph ecosystem in the world right now, and even why I'm here. And my end goal is to make sure everyone knows what Web3 is and how it differs from previous versions of the internet. Something I think is very misunderstood around the world, and oftentimes even quite a bit within the industry. So I'll start with a little background on me. I was born and raised a crazy California kid. I joined the Air Force right out of high school at the super mature age of 17. After 12 years of serving around the world, doing a bunch of stuff in intelligence and others, I decided to choose family over a very successful military career at the time. I then got my MBA in Houston to make the transition to the civilian world and actually learn how to be a civilian adult, which was tough for me. And then I got a great job at Goldman Sachs, right? I actually did really well there. I was living a very comfortable life. But about 2 years into my almost 7 years at Goldman, so around late 2016, I started to dip my toes into crypto after a total black hat friend of mine has been putting the bug in my ears for years. And I started as a volatility trader, then a trader learner, and then just a very heavy protocol user across the space. And that's where my mind was, right? All the time. I wasn't thinking about Goldman. I wasn't thinking about how to get my next client at Goldman and how to make more money for my bottom line. I would go home and I would totally degen for 10 hours a day. So that's, in the end, I just kind of realized I needed a mission more important than my bottom line. So I finally ripped the Band-Aid off. I weaned myself off of the institutional addiction I'd had for, at that point, over 2 decades, and I've been in the space full-time since. And I oversee beating partnerships for Edge and Node and the Graph, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, and where it fits into the Web3 ecosystem. But when I told people I was quitting, a high-paying, great quality of life, where I got to eat and drink my way around the country with amazing people, everyone thinks you're absolutely insane, right? And after they get over that, if they do, only then do they start to wonder what this space is all about, right? They ask what Web3 is and what it means. And, think about what does it mean, right? What is Web3 and how do we define it when someone asks? I'd say it's a lot of things, right, to a lot of different people, but what really sets Web3 apart from Web 1 or Web 2? Let's start with how we got here, actually. Let's go back to Web 1, the OG. We could say started back in late 80s, early 90s, where companies made content for themselves and sometimes for people to view around the world. There were static pages, no interactive features, and we could just call this the read era, where we, as users, could only view. Another way to encapsulate this is where companies created and companies profited. And then fast forward almost a decade to Web 2, where the read era changed into one where we can read and write. So user-generated content started to pour into the internet. Things like blogs and comments and likes and just social media dynamics in general really started to take hold. And it was arguably an essential step in the internet's revolution because it changed how we as people were able to learn, collaborate, connect, and interact. But it's also where, in Web 2, everything we do online, every social media and picture, almost every aspect of our digital lives is owned and controlled by the platforms with which we are interacting. Another way to think of this is where we create content, but the companies own, control, and profit almost everything. And then along came Web3, a decentralized internet platform where anyone with access to the internet with no gatekeeping of any kind just about, and where information is transparent and verifiable. That's very important, verifiable by anyone on chain, not just a few wealthy people behind closed doors. And this is where we can read, we can write, but we can also own our digital footprints and our massive digital identities that come in today's age in general. In other words, we create content and we profit if we'd like to participate. But again, how do we define Web3? Right? How do we explain what sets it apart? Is it blockchain technology, right? With data living on a blockchain, with people able to track something at any time? Maybe. But think of a social media company, hypothetically in today's age, and the recent shift into blockchain NFTs, and eventually the metaverse, and now think if those NFTs are stored on a private blockchain, on private servers that the company controls, and that the company can arbitrarily roll back and change things as it suits their needs. So that's not only a possibility, that's what's happening today. That doesn't feel very Web3 to me. What about ownership, right? Truly owning your digital assets opposed to needing them to be custodied somewhere else by a bank or a custodian of any sort, which is a huge part of what I and a lot of other people are actually finding really appealing about this space. Again, maybe that's it, but you can have ownership in Web 2, right? In traditional finance. Companies could create tokens or NFTs, put them on a public blockchain, and let you keep those assets in your wallet, protected by a counter authorization. But what happens when a government says that project and those assets are illegal, potentially for no good reason? What happens when a token or even a cartoon picture of an ape is deemed an illegal security, a blacklisted form of art, right? Or any other ridiculous thing someone might come up with? You better believe that any company in the world that wants to survive will shut off their website and those servers in order to keep the company going. So I'd say ownership is out. And then what about shared governance and economics, right? Another cool thing that people bring up often, the ability for people to get together, collaborate, interact, and decide about protocols of a platform or future of a platform or entity, and share all the profit and interactions with participants in the ecosystem. That sounds extremely Web3 to me. But people could, hypothetically, do that in Web 2, in traditional corporations, even in traditional finance right now. They just don't. The incentives aren't there, right? And if the organization didn't fit perfectly into the world that it's supposed to when it's creating a company, those people will get fined, the site will get shut down, and people can go to jail, right? So I ask again, what is Web3? Is it the memes? Answer is obviously yes, but what makes it so special and how can we define it? I'll start with the definition. In short, Web3 is a new platform for decentralized applications. Right? A new platform for decentralized applications. So let's break that down. By context, or by definition rather, in this context, a platform is a technology upon which other things are built. Right? For example, the personal computer is a hardware technology that's allowed creation of music. It has allowed us to create games and connect to the internet. And the internet is a platform that's led to social media. It's led to global communication, interaction, and everything else we do online. But what's a decentralized application? I think that's where the confusion sets in, and the word decentralized is where it gets really, really important. In essence, and this is important, an application is not decentralized without a decentralized technology stack. And what does that mean? It means no private servers. Right? No private or proprietary databases owned by any government, any company, or anyone else, siloed off from the rest of the world. Decentralization matters, as we've seen many times in recent months, and unfortunately, most people don't care about decentralization until they need to. Without a decentralized tech stack, a dApp is just an app, and an app is just more Web 2 technology. So that's something to really keep in mind. And some people ask me, why does decentralization matter? What does it do? You just look at a couple very important stats that I pulled, though they're definitely not comprehensive. This is a picture showing that 6 media conglomerates in light blue own most of the media content in the world, where decisions are made behind closed doors, incentives are to make more money as much as possible based on what sells, not on providing the truth and quality entertainment. We take what they give us, we ingest their narratives based on their priorities. They can shut down accounts, and they do. They exclude those people that they want, and they do. And there's pretty much nothing we can legally do about it in today's existing system in general. But it goes beyond media. 7 big companies decide on how to curate what we wear and put on our bodies. 10 big companies decide how and what we eat. And 5 massive tech companies, biggest companies in the world, decide most of how the internet and surrounding technologies evolve and are priced. Wringing a lot of profitability out of the users, which are us. right? Not only because that's their incentive, it's because it's their corporate fiduciary responsibility. They are legally bound to do what's best for their shareholders, not for us and half of the world that uses most of these platforms. It's sad, but it's also very true. So this is what was plaguing my mind, right? When I was a silent, anon degen, sitting in Discords and Telegrams while at Goldman, and my incentives were to solely make myself more money by making other very wealthy people and corporations more money at the same time. It was killing me, so I quit. Because I realized that Web3 is essential for the world, and I wanted to be part of it from the inside, right? Not as a participant, which I was, not as an investor, which I was, but I needed to step in, dive in head first, and start building it. Because Web3 is essential for the world. It's because the world deserves verifiable and transparent information, which would have definitely helped in times like Enron, times like the financial crisis with the ratings agencies. It's because Web3 reduces the incentives for a few large corporations to own everything and extract every ounce of data and profitability that they legally can from all of their users. So it moves away from the incentives of value extraction. In general, that's going to lead their behavior. Because like as Charlie Munger says, you show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome, so you have to change the incentives. It's because we deserve technology that is robust to failure and centralized control, and because we finally, for the first time in human history, have a technology platform that allows us to take the power, the control, the ownership, and decision-making from a few wealthy leaders sitting in ivory towers and giving it back to us as individuals. And that is extremely powerful. First time in human history. And we get to build it and be participants in it. And that it blows my mind. And I sleep better than I ever have in my 20+ year career. So how do we build it, right? Is true Web3 technology even ready? And the answer is almost. Many blockchains are fairly mature in their roadmaps. File storage is coming along with IPFS and Arweave. Oracles like Chainlink have an amazing product market fit. Streaming protocols like LivePeer are making amazing headway in the space. But I decided to join an ecosystem that's taking on probably the biggest challenge in the ecosystem. And that's the graph, which is indexing the world's blockchain data. So not just one project, not just one chain, but the entire ecosystem. And if Web3, well, I'd say when Web3 eats the world's data, the graph will be indexing the world's data in general. That's what I get to work on and help oversee in the graph ecosystem. It's freaking awesome. So quick overview, the graph is an indexing and query layer, pretty much the indexing and query layer for Web3, one of the most used protocols in the space. It's become the default way for over 30,000 builders since the product launched in 2019. And this all relies on open APIs called subgraphs that builders use to organize and make blockchain data usable within their UIs or user interfaces. There have been over 70,000 subgraphs created over the life of the protocol, and 36,000 are still actively used every day to power the user interfaces that all of us go to across multiple verticals, across 37 chains. It's incredible what the graph empowers. As for what the tech does, if you think of blockchain data as a massive football stadium filled of randomly identified transactions, let's say represented by multiple colored candies, this is what data looks like on the blockchain before the graph, and this is what it looks like after. Powering pretty much every major DeFi, AMM, and exchange right now across 37 chains like Uniswap, Trader Joe, SpookySwap, PancakeSwap, HoneySwap, and more. Powering powerhouse NFT protocols like Decentralized, Foundation, and many other NFT-based protocols, and every other vertical like wallets, bridges, data analytics, oracles, and more. Right? It's really incredible what the graph does for the space. It wouldn't work without the graph, and I feel lucky that I got to come and work on it. But this volume is on the hosted service right now, which the Graph Foundation and Edge Node, well, let's say the Edge Node in general has been subsidizing and running, and that we're in the process of deprecating. And the hosted service has always been a temporary solution. The decentralized network, on the other hand, is what the graph was meant to be from the very beginning. A decentralized public for good that is resilient to anything the world can throw against it. Right? Where websites don't get shut down, where narratives aren't just formed by those that win, but by everyone. It's just a more just foundation to a more just internet. the next version of the internet. Though for the past year or so, I'd say only Ethereum has been enabled on the decentralized network. But the Graph Foundation, who stewards the network, recently announced that the network is officially going cross-chain. Gnosis Chain will be the first of many of those 37 chains to integrate with the network, and then we'll be moving on to many more in the near future over the next few quarters. But indexing and building across chains is no small feat. There are hundreds of indexers that need to move from indexing Ethereum to eventually 37 chains. So to help make that possible, the Graph Foundation announced a program with 75 million GRT up for grabs over the next few quarters. So a fully cross-chain futures in the near future. And I know I got a few seconds left. So you can and should get involved, right? This is a protocol for the world. Please take out your phones, scan the barcode, plug into the community, apply for a job, join the draft Discord and Telegram, become an indexer, curator, and delegator, and I can explain those later. Apply to be a graph advocate. There's so many ways to come and get involved. Come and see why the graph is not only one of the most important protocols in the space, but it's also one of the most exciting. But for now, before I get the hook off the stage, I'll just say thank you, and I hope to see you all at the graph booth.